Next, on Radio 4, Russell Davies unfolds the story of radio comedy once again. The Second World War continues, with some unusual alliances developing on the comedy front.
You sing, Mr. Robinson?
Oh, like a bird, a vulture. You sing, Mr. Handley?
Like a dream, a nightmare.
Well, then what are we waiting for? After you, Claude.
No, after you, Cecil. Oh, Mr. Robinson.
Yes?
Now, Mr. Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
You have just arrived here from the USA.
That's right.
And the question on my list is, do lemons still exist? And do bananas turn the same old way?
Well, Mr. Handley.
Yes?
Yes, Mr. Handley.
Oh?
It's true there's lots of fruit there, I agree. But there's still one here I've seen. It's the raspberry, I mean.
I don't get it, Mr. Robinson.
You will shortly, Mr. P. Mr. Handley.
Well?
Oh, Mr. Handley.
Yes?
Is it true that here in England, more or less, fellows have no time to spoon underneath the silvery moon, and all the girls are in the ATS?
Oh, Mr. Robinson. Now, Mr. Robinson. You must have heard that nonsense in a bra.
Why, ever since the war, there's been more love than before. That's the berries, Mr. Handley.
No, the blackout, Mr. R.
Yes, Tommy Handley of ITMA and Edward G. Robinson of Hollywood. An unlikely partnership, but perhaps for that very reason, a useful symbol of the cooperation between the fighting allies in 1942. With America's forces now in the war, her radio artists and scriptwriters naturally came along as well, which wasn't necessarily to the liking of everybody in the comedy business. The feeling in the famous jibe, overpaid, oversexed, and over here, affected our local funny men from time to time, and a very dry and sardonic comedian like Ronald Franco was capable of sounding a bit grouchy about it, making some of his audience feel a bit puzzled, I sense.
You, the great British public, whose well-known artistic taste for higher wit before the war so often elected me 74th in competitions for order of popularity, have, I am sure, little idea of the way in which we labor on your behalf. Alert or no alert, we always are. We never get any sleep because in the earliest hours of every morning we have to listen into American jokes. And then spend the remaining pre-dawn translating them into English for you. After breakfast, tea and aspirin, we comedians send scores of priority telegrams to each other, stating in vain which of the American gags are now our own original and exclusive ones.
The American style that Franco felt he was being forced into was now widely heard in Europe, and we can sample a little of what he was on about in an extract from a program called, oddly enough, Command Performance, hardly the British idea of one. What it mainly shows is the sheer weight of celebrity that America could unload in one program, if it felt like it. Here, round the one microphone, are 4 world-renowned names: Bing Crosby, Judy Garland, a young man apparently built of pipe cleaners and brill cream, Frank Sinatra, and the ringmaster, Bob Hope.
Thanks, Judy. That was swell. You know, it's always a pleasure to hear you sing.
Oh, that's very sweet, Bob, but to tell the truth, I didn't come down here to Command Performance just to sing. I have something on my mind.
Me too. Let's get out of here, huh?
No problem, and I want to ask you a big favor.
Well, sure, Jude. What is it?
Well, I know you're with Paramount, Bob, but you see, I'm making a musical for MGM, and I need a leading man. He must be very good-looking, tremendously talented, have loads of appeal for women, so naturally I came to you.
Well, geez, thanks.
I thought sure you could recommend somebody. The choice for my next lead has just narrowed down to 2 men.
2 men?
Mm-hmm. Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra.
Well, go on. So far, you've only got a man and a half. Oh, Sinatra and Crosby. Why don't you take me for your leading man? Forget about breathless and hairless.
Bob, my mind is made up.
But honestly, Judy, run away from it. If you'd only reconsider. After all, what is Crosby, anyhow?
Don't nobody answer that.
Oh, hi, you Bing.
Hello, Bing. We were beginning to worry about you, Bing.
Really?
Yeah, we're afraid you might show up.
Where's Frank Sinatra? Sinatra thing. I thought you were coming over together.
Well, we were, Judith, but I couldn't carry him another block. About him in the tropics. What is the matter with her?
I think she just said it's Sinatra. Yep, here he is.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Frank. I'm awfully glad you got here.
Well, every once in a while, one of those long shots come in. How are you, Frank?
How would you know?
Oh, I feel fine, Mr. Crosby. Let's declare a little moratorium on the formality, Frankie. Just call me Bing. Oh, no, I wouldn't dream of calling a man of your years by his first name.
Mass stardom overcoming the woodenness of the setup in command performance. It wasn't the British style to concentrate the talent in that way. Rather, it was spread out over an increasingly vast range of entertainment programs, more and more of them aimed at particular national or armed forces audiences, some of them far off and reached by shortwave. Variety shows were now parcelled out so that each particular branch of the uniformed services could feel there was a little patch of the airwaves that belonged to them. And the longest running of them within the war itself was the pet property of the Home Defence Systems.
For anti-aircraft and balloon commands and coast artillery, the 324th and final broadcast of Ack Ack Bear Bear.
And on came our genial host. The particular confidence exuded by Wing Commander Kenneth Horne, a blend of headmasterliness and businessman's bounce, was to turn him gradually into a kind of human maypole of radio comedy, around whom zanier talents would frolic. But for now, his duties were those of a basic chairman.
I forget how many times in the last 4 years our next artist has done his stuff and nonsense in this program. To be strictly truthful, he's been kept in a box in the studio and let out as required. But only this afternoon he just happened to escape. Pray comparative silence, then, for Corporal Bill Waddington.
Hello, everybody. Very pleased to see you. Very good afternoon.
You seem to be in high spirits today, Bill.
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm very high-spirited just now. I've taken a new hobby on. I'm doing a bit of bird fancying now.
Oh, really?
Yes, I was up with the lark this morning and out with the wren last night. Yeah. I've got a friend of mine. He keeps a poultry farm. He said to me the other day, he said, "Do you know, Bill, a single hen can lay 500 eggs a year?" I said, "Is that so?" He said, "Yes, it is." I said, "How many do the married ones lay?" He's a nice fella, yeah. And I noticed he was smelling very nice, lovely smell. I said, "What's that? Is it the hair cream?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What is it?" He said, "That Pomme de la Paris, 18 shillings a bottle." I said, "Have a smell at that." He said, "Good gracious, what is it?" I said, "Petrol, you can't get it at any price."
Aye, the same Bill Waddington we've been watching in latter years as Percy Sogden on Coronation Street. For listeners who tired of the variety format, there wasn't very much relief, but there was some, pioneered from the middle of the war by the journalistic and literary wit Stephen Potter, with the subtle help of a new accomplice, Joyce Grenfell. Between them, they worked up some instructive entertainments, which gradually turned into what the BBC likes to call an occasional series, the How-To series. By 1943, the war was going well enough for them to consider the problems of how to give a party. As you'll hear, the style of production owed a lot more to drama than to music hall.
Charlie, could I have a word with you?
Charlie, what?
Did you want the sausage rolls now or later?
Oh, are you ready yet?
Oh, they're ready, but I didn't know if you wanted them saved for later.
No, but they ought to be going round now. Charlie!
That really is eloquent.
Fascinating.
That man really writes those poems about the Lake of Longing and the Garden of Recollection.
Yes. Even the back of his head is fascinating to me.
Let's tear the back of his head.
Excuse me a second, Marion. I must just have a word with Charlie. Charlie, there's a perfectly strange man juggling with some mince pies in the dining room, and I know he's going to break a glass or something.
Oh, Lord, what do you want me to do?
Well, this is your house, and those are your glasses just as much as mine, so go on.
I don't know what I'm going to say.
I expect you get thousands and thousands of letters, don't you, about your music, Mr. Martin?
I did get a letter last week from a lady who didn't seem to like it. She was very down on it.
It's always been my ambition to be able to make music. I suppose you started from the cradle. Mr. Martin?
No. As a matter of fact, I was a schoolmaster in Cape Town for a number of years.
Yes, of course you were.
The quiet but sometimes exquisite comedy of Stephen Potter and Joyce Grenfell, offering a lovely change of pace to exhausted wartime nerves. One most listeners seemed to need, though, was the boisterousness of stage humour, with the communal comfort of audience reaction thrown in. The fact of laughter was perhaps a better tonic than the material itself. Here's an example that ought to have been typical, but turned out dramatically different. It's the start of a corny crosstalk, old-fashioned but fondly received, from a seafarers' show called Shipmates Ashore. It was broadcast from London because by 1944 comedy had returned from North Wales to the capital, on the assumption that the worst of the Blitz was over, which, in terms of saturation bombing, it was. But there were new dangers in the air.
Let's turn the telescope on Claude Halbert, now appearing in Panama Hattie, and Enid Trevor.
Claude! Here I am, Roy, here I am. I've just made the most amazing discovery. They're absolutely necessary in all walks of life.
What's not absolutely necessary in all walks of life?
Feet.
So ridiculous. Where have you been?
Well, I've just been outside looking
Not many laughs ensued, but you can hardly blame the performance. In fact, all praise for trooperism to Enid Trevor, bashing straight on while the debris was still in mid-air. Since that was June the 30th, 1944, the bang must have been a V1. They'd just started coming over a little over a fortnight before. It missed anyway, but not by much, and for a horrible moment, a workaday comedy show had been thrust into the front line. The show that pursued our troops most enthusiastically around the theatres of war was Merry-Go-Round, Middle East Merry-Go-Round as it started off, then Mediterranean Merry-Go-Round, and finally splitting into 3 editions for Army, Navy and Air Force. The Army version, subtitled Studio Stand Easy, became the domain of Charlie Chester and Company. The Navy one was the jumping-off point for Eric Barker.
Parade! Carry on smoking. I have a few announcements here for anybody who's interested. Silence. Silence. Leave will be cancelled next weekend. As nobody's come back from last weekend yet, it won't make the slightest difference.
In peacetime, that show would become Barker's feature, Waterlogged Spa, a location not unlike the one where the RAF's merry-go-round was set. Their location, in fact, would eventually become the peacetime title of the series. But in these wartime days, it was merely the refrain of this well-remembered song.
Landing in the marsh. Concealment is a thing that we've relied on. That much landing in the marsh. We like to keep the place from being spied on. To camouflage the aeroplane instead of using nets. The other day we painted it, but much to our regret, we did it so successfully we haven't found it yet. And much landing in the marsh.
Wing Commander Kenneth Horne again, and Squadron Leader Richard Murdoch, whose musical aptitudes were sometimes put to more satirical use.
Ladies and gentlemen, the stink pot. Do I worry, 'cause you're skipping out? Do I worry, 'cause you've got me in doubt? Though your kisses are right, do I give a bag of beans? Do I stay home every night and read my magazine?
Am I curious when the goblet flies? Am I furious about your little white lies? And when all our evenings end, because you've got a sick friend who needs you. Do I worry, honey?
You can bet your life I do. Why whisper green grass?
Do I worry?
Why tell the breeze it ain't true?
Am I curious?
Don't feel the breeze, 'cause the trees only need us one.
ink spots coming in for a gentler ribbing than some Americans of the time were getting. But little niggles of that kind were of absolutely no account when set against the news of the progress of the war, which, while not relentlessly good, did go on improving and accelerating until...
This is London calling. Here is a news flash. The German radio has just announced that Hitler is dead. I'll repeat that. The German radio has just announced that Hitler is dead.
News which can have dismayed only the most desperate of scriptwriters, who were thereby deprived of the best ever target for insult gags. Within days the war was at an end, and Churchill, using a phrase which in its puritanical restraints was worthy of Sir John Rees, was saying,
"We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing,"
which was marked by a victory edition of more or less everything, above all the by now sanctified ITMA.
Can I do you now, sir?
Well, listen up. Tell me, why are you standing on one leg?
Well, sir...
Now, don't tell me. So it was you I saw posing as Eros in Piccadilly on Tuesday night.
Oh, sir, I did enjoy myself.
Really?
Every time I waved my flag, I found myself on top of a taxi with a soldier.
Well, you were lucky to get one. I came home by underground. I slipped down a manhole and caught the last drain.
The sailors were a bit saucy.
Oh?
There was one kept bumping into me and calling me his little collision mate. He fell for me in a big way,
What,
sir.
did he jump off the lamppost and land on your quarterdeck? What about the RAF?
Oh, sir, what a flighty lot. Why, they wanted me to do the victory roll.
Well, you shouldn't do your hair up in a bun. I thought you were a piece of cake. Anyway, Mrs. Mott, I want you to appear in my victory parade.
Not as Godiva, sir. I'm sure that's where I caught my rheumatism.
Well, you must have sat on a damp horse.
And Tommy Handley, who more than anyone else had embodied the uncrushable high spirits of the nation, led the tribute to Churchill, who had embodied its indomitable fighting instinct. The song may sound slightly fatuous now, but it must have been great fun to sing it in May 1945.
We're glad we walk behind the man who smoked a big cigar. We follow the man whose master plan has carried us through the war. One sniff of the old Havana, we'd follow him right to Fujiyama. We're glad we walk behind the man who smoked the big cigar.
Of course, this wasn't the end of the entire struggle by any means, as the variety head John Watt was careful to remind listeners on another victory show, the Victory Party.
Don't think, please, because we're throwing a party that we've forgotten that there are men still fighting in the Far East. They're all far from home, but they're not forgotten. But this is victory in Europe. It is the end of phase one, and we're all due for a little rejoicing before we get on with that other war.
In order to cater for what did tend to become forgotten armies in the Japanese war so far away, special SEAC shows, Southeast Asia Command, were organized to maintain the morale of those involved at first or second hand in that conflict. At one of these in Leeds, the incredible Stainless Stephen resurfaced yet again to tell of his troop entertaining travels in Burma. His method hadn't changed a bit. Still the aldermanic delivery, still the clearing of the throat after the punchline, and still he got away with it.
But you know, folks, I'm very, very proud of this jungle uniform of mine. This is all I wore out here with those very, very gallant lads in Burma. I did most of my shows standing on jeeps, on ammunition boxes. As a matter of fact, one particular show I did on the gallows at Camilla. There was a great deal of wishful thinking, but I'm still here yet. I want to tell you a bit about Burma, folks, as you've all got interests over there. It's a wonderful country. To say that the wise men come from the east, by God, what I saw of it, I don't blame them either. The climate over there, Mr. Hammond, 110 degrees in the shade. Talk about being on Ilkley Moor, about that. I was walking up and down India, about that, about collar, about tie, about shirt, and about hat. Before I'd been there a month, I was about any skin on my back as well.
An American colonel's got eagles on his shoulders, that 2 vultures on mine for a fortnight. I went from there to a spot called Kahima up in the Chin Hills, 8,000 feet above sea level. We had to bend down at night to let the moon pass.
So the radio stars of 15, even 20 years before still seem to be around. And it was left to one of the most durable of them to celebrate the very end of war on VJ Day, while incidentally paying tribute to some of the personalities who had made wartime civilian life worth living. And here he is.
Ladies and gentlemen, Norman Long.
Well, I'm going to start with the most appropriate song I can think of for today. It's a song called The Victory Ball. Now, we've set the world to rights again and victory in our laps. We've turned up all the lights again and polished off the jets. We'll have a jubilation, a beano and a spree, with all the Allied nations celebrating victory. High and low, great and small, we'll all be dancing at the victory ball. All be making whoopee, trying to relax, never caring tuppence for your income tax. Teddy Brown is coming with an actual admirer. You do an acrobatic stunt dancing on the wire. And Vera Lynn will want to set the world on fire on the night of the victory ball. High and low, great and small, we'll all be dancing at the victory ball, shouting out a chorus, jigging up and down, Richard Talbot singing Knees Up Mother Brown. BBC announcers, though it's rather strange, will all be coming, so they're trying to arrange for dear old Stuart Hibbards as they blinded for a change on the night of the victory ball. High and low, great and small, we'll all be dancing at the victory ball, singing Rule Britannia, shouting Hooray, won't go home till morning till the break of day. Dear old Winston Churchill, looking frightfully fit, with the biggest and the fattest cigar he's ever lit, and treating Lady Astor to a double gin and it.
Old teeth and trousers, Norman Long. And there were already new comedy stars among the returning forces. Victory's Star Show featured a young man with a hyphen called Terry Thomas, whose war memoirs were an extension of the silly-ass comedy of the 30s, with a little more satirical sting. Well, anti-heroic anyway.
To bring this story almost up to date, in 1940, I received a most cunningly worded invitation to join the army. At the bottom of this illuminating address were the letters RSVP. Regimentum Soldari Vaccinati Pandemonium. Which being translated into the old Greek means, if you don't turn up, it'll be just too bad.
If wartime overall had tended to encourage quantity in comedy, necessarily at the expense of concentrated quality, it had also set up an interesting tension between the American way of presenting radio and our own. And one new and popular show more or less dramatized this very difference.
What are women wearing in shoes this year?
Feet!
Correct. Pay that man 5 shillings. What is an unlucky man?
A man who gets the itch and a broken arm at the same time.
Correct. Pay that man 10 shillings. And there, ladies and gentlemen, you have 2 sublimely happy men because...
Ignorance is bliss. And as living proof that it's folly to be wise, we present 3 inmates from a fool's paradise, Mr. Michael Moore, Miss Gladys Hay, and Mr. Harold Barron.
In effect, what happened in Ignorance is Bliss was that the 3 British knockabout comedians were constantly escaping and subverting the control of the would-be smooth North American question master figure, played by Stuart McPherson, who was actually a Canadian. The results were often more raucous than polished, but then the title made no secret of that.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, here's the next question, so give me your undivided attention. This one comes from Veronica Story of 5 Broxash Road, West Side, London. And she asks this. A car is traveling at 50 miles per hour. How many miles per hour does another car go if it is traveling at the same speed?
Yeah, is that all one question?
Of course it is. What did you think it was?
I thought you was reading the 10 o'clock news.
Look, it's a perfectly simple question. Mr. Moore, would you like me to repeat it?
No, thank you, Mr. McPherson. That won't be necessary.
Then you know the answer.
No, I've decided to sit this one out.
I see.
Why don't you ask me if I know the answer?
Well, do you?
No.
Miss Hay, why don't you use the water on your brain to go bathing? And look, we'll take the question a bit at a time. A car is traveling at 50 miles per hour.
What makes it? How many horsepower?
How many people
Look,
does it
wait a minute. A car is traveling at 50 miles per hour.
Where's he going?
He's not going anywhere in particular.
Then what's all the blinking hurry for? It's people like that what causes all these accidents. 50 miles an hour and he don't know where he's going. What a geezer.
What a geezer, a catchphrase, of course. Incidentally, when Stuart McPherson was ill one week, his deputy, chosen for a near North American manner at the microphone, was a very young man called Eamon Andrews. This single performance was heard by Angus Mackay, the senior sports producer, and he took Andrews on to fame and fortune. Not that those could buy you much in austerity Britain, where the sight of a banana or a pineapple was rare enough to draw a crowd of curious onlookers, and the appropriate thing to do with a sausage was to toast it. If the meat shortage had one historical justification, it was that it provided the finest hour of the comedienne Suzette Tarry. Her method had changed just a little bit, because she dropped some of the old-fashioned char-lady wobble in the voice and become instead the suffering austerity housewife, wrestling with the shortages. This recording carries no scriptwriter credit, but it is the most brilliant parade of innocently suggestive phraseology, the sort of thing you could imagine, say, Alan Bennett drawing inspiration from in his boyhood.
Got a bit of news for you. I've changed my butcher now. Oh, I was losing so much weight. My goodness, yes. I've gone to Mr. Chitterling down the road there. Because I've known old Charlie Chitterling for years, you know. We had a boy and girl love affair together. Because he's married now with grown-up responsibilities. But when I went into his shop and he was registering me sort of off of, you know, like, I said to him, now, look here, Charlie, hope you're going to treat me nice for old time's sake. He said, I will, Susie, but not in front of a shop full of customers. Kept his word, too. Eh? Oh, yes. That evening, while I was sitting in my own, like, I heard a flop in the hall, see? And he pushed a pound of sausages through my letterbox. They were tied in a true lover's knot. With a little card on them for old Lang Syne. Of course, I went into him next morning to thank him. He said, don't thank me, thank the lady who left them on the counter 3 weeks ago. Yes. But, you know, I had to leave me old butcher. I couldn't stand it. And, you know, at one time I thought there was going to be romance between us. Well, any girl would. I'll tell you what happened. It was during the war it happened. I went into his shop, you see, and slipped on a piece of gristle. Well, when I came to, I was laying across his chopping board. He was fanning me with a piece of liver. He was looking down into my eyes and calling these workers' playtime. And, you know, when I got home, I found he'd tucked a couple of kidneys underneath me 4 pennies scragging.
Absurd, you may say, but actually so very close to real life at that time. I remember the cues, not to mention the meat. No, the boys who were destined to take radio over the far edge of real absurdity were just struggling out of their uniforms.
Land ahead!
I should have said that sooner, shouldn't I?
Russell Davies wrote and presented The Story of Radio Comedy. The producer is Neil Cargill. And the next edition of Radio Fun veers strongly in the direction of not only the early Goons, but also Max Wall, Archie Andrews, and others.
The story of radio comedy, in which Russell Davies joins the performers trying to make their way in a demob-happy Britain in 1945.
We present Wilfred Pickles as ex-Corporal Wilf. This is the 16th program in which we follow him as he finds his way back into the post-war world. For him and for his friends, this has been a week of crisis, and the trouble was started by his wife. Here's how it happened.
A Yorkshire actor and sometime wartime newsreader goes into character comedy. Like almost everyone else at the time, he's in a show that'll prove a stepping stone to better things.
Thanks, lads. That were Harry on flute and Ernie on drum, rendering their well-known masterpiece, Entrance of Ex-Corporal Wilf Schofield. Ah, that's me. How do? How are you?
Greatly, thanks. Those words in just a few years would be Wilfred Pickles' personal call sign in his really famous show, Have a Go, offering another spot of homely fun, bringing the people to the people. But ex-Corporal Wilf's aim in life seems to have been to prevent the people from fomenting revolution.
I don't understand what it's for. What is this here Housewives Committee?
Well, it's all about the dry days. We haven't decided what to do about it yet. We're having a meeting. And that's why I shan't be cooking your dinner today.
Oh, see.
We might have a demonstration.
You might what?
Yes, if we can get enough stuff to make a banner, we might all march up to town and then...
Now, look here. You're not for making an exhibition of yourself. Now, we're out put to for brass. The country is, I mean. And we've not got a lot of credit in the shops abroad, like. We've got so easy on buying stuff outside, so we've sold some of our own.
But I don't see
Shut
why
up,
that...
will you? Shut up. If you want more dried eggs, you'll have to go without something else that comes across the water.
Oh, I see.
Ah. Well, now, what's the point of making a blinking banner? If you want more dried eggs, you'll have to cut down something else like, well, tobacco or...
Tobacco, eh? Would that do it?
Well, what might help.
Oh, I see. Here, Wilfred, why don't you come to the meeting and explain all about it to the other housewives?
Well, I'm not putting my nose into your cackling end party.
But it would help.
Help me, Ahmed. You go to your meeting. I'm going with a bit of sense talk.
And where's that?
To the White Swan. They'll just be open.
Yes, male chauvinism and conservatism being dispensed with a heavy propagandistic hand in 1946, presumably to discourage the public, who'd already voted in a socialist government, from doing anything yet more drastic. But half the country was still in uniform anyway, or at least in a uniformed state of mind. Hence the very barrack-room humour of, among others, Charlie Chester's Stand Easy.
Oh, there you are.
Hello, Edwina. What's new?
There's a man outside says he wants to see you.
Want to see me? Okay, let him in.
I do.
Oh, now, what can I do for you?
Well, now, I represent the Federation of the Fellowship Offender Society of Full-Time Firemen.
Oh, yes?
Well, anything you could do something about knocking off 9 inches of unnecessary nozzle.
Knocking off what?
9 inches of unnecessary brass nozzle. See, the hose is heavy enough without the enormous nozzle on the end.
Well, the point is this.
No, the point is the nozzle. The boys are getting a bit burned up about it. The weight is wearing them out. They want 9 inches knocked off the end of their nozzles.
All right, I'll talk to the head squirt.
As a gravy. Ta-da.
Yes, you could get away with a lot in the 40s, if necessary, under the banner of surrealism, which was big in the poetry world as well as in humour. To many people, after an exhausting war terminated by the colossal horror of the atom bomb, existence had become meaningless, or at least threatened by meaninglessness. I know you'll say I'm being fancy if I suggest that comedy, for a moment or two, shook hands with the coming spirit of Samuel Beckett. But, well, listen to this.
So I dashed into the station master's office and said to an old boy there, "What time is the next train to London?" He said, "If you look at the station clock when it arrives, you'll know before I do." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes, and even then you'll be wrong." I said, "Why?" He said, "The clock's wrong." I said, are you the station master?" He says, "No, I help the guard to look out of the window." I said, "Help him look out." I said, "Well, what do you see out the window?" He said, "Nothing." I said, "Why not?" He said, "The bottom half of the window's bolted up." I said, "Well, why don't you look out of the top half?" He said, "I'm not tall enough."
I said, well, how tall are you? He said, I'm 2 feet 1 sitting down. I said, don't you ever stand up? He says, only when I'm tired. I said, well, that's at least original. I suppose when it's time for the train to pull out, you wave your whistle and blow a long blast on the flag. He said, no, we don't use the whistle. The engine driver's deaf. He can't hear it. I said, well, don't you wave the flag? He said, it's no use. I said, why? He says, the engine driver's colourblind. And even if he wasn't, it wouldn't be any use. I said, why? He said, the flag's a black one. I said, why is it black? He says, I've been cleaning my boots with it. I said, does the guard know you clean your boots on his flag? He said, oh, yes. I said, isn't he annoyed? He said, oh, no. I said, why not? He says, he cleans his boots on it as well. I said, well, how do you get the train started? He said, well, we usually send a little note along saying you may now start. I said, well, that's very, very charming. I said, I suppose you write that in invisible ink. He said, no, I can't write. I said, you can't write. I said, what about the engine driver? He says, oh, that doesn't bother him. I said, why not? He said, he can't read.
Decades later, people were surprised when Max Wall was actually cast in Samuel Beckett's plays. But there he was, dallying with nihilism and the theatre of the absurd in 1946. But that was one solo act. The continuity of comedy was carried on by the services shows, gradually shedding their battle dress and getting into civvies, and by the ever-rolling stream of ITMA. Foaming at the mouth had been left behind, and Tommy Handley had come to lord it over the infinitely adaptable realm of Tomtopia. New running characters had made themselves indispensable, like Tatty McIntosh.
Mr. Handley, can I ask you a question?
Hello, my little tatty skull. What is it?
I think Miss Hotchkiss wants to marry you.
Don't be ridiculous, just because we wear the same kind of bootlaces. Doesn't mean a thing.
Ah, but you know what she wears round her neck?
What, besides that red bandage? But you've got a slice of potato to keep the rheumatism away.
Oh, no. She's got a locket with a wee photo of you inside. But it's not much like you.
Oh, that was cut out of the Radio Times.
I'm going to have a word with her anyway. If anybody's going to change their name to Handley, it's me.
Oh, well, if that's the game, I'll change my name to Izzy Bond. And in response to your request, I'll sing you a brand new ballad. I'm in love with two.
Oh, yes,
Molly Weir at full Caledonian warble as Tatty McIntosh. From an ancient Liverpool department store, blitzed during the war, came the name of Frisbee Dyke, which Handley slipped in as an improvisation on air. It stuck to Derek Guyler.
Well, now from here, I'll take you to a nightclub. Compared to this, it's the complete antithesis. What's an antithesis? I said, what's an antithesis? Now listen, Hackins, hey. An antithesis. Well, it's a sort of antithesis with an ant crawling up it. Fancy that? Yes. Here, aren't you the chap from Penzance? No, I'm a ship's engineer. Oh, you see a lot of the world, then? I do that. I'm sailing tomorrow from Liverpool. What, to New York? No, to New Brighton. I do it every day. Fancy that, eh?
Say, Tom, who was that foreigner?
Well, I always call him Frisbee Dyke.
Why?
Well, what else could I call him? Now, relax and we'll have a nice Australian cocktail.
What's that, honey?
A glass of bitter with a wallaby in it. I tell you what, let's all have a drink. Tom, gentlemen, please. Who's there? Frisbee Dyke.
Young Hattie Jakes making up the trio, and Derek Guyler claimed that Frisbee Dyke was the first ever example of a fully catarrhal Liverpool accent being used in broadcast entertainment. Liverpudlians like Arthur Askey, Rob Wilton and Tommy Handley himself being vocally sanitised by comparison. The old Mrs. Mop had now gone, but there were still survivors from her era.
Now, I better look round this stall. It needs a complete spring clear-out.
Bring the beer out. It's a good idea, Handley.
Hello, Colonel. You look shocking. Have you been drinking Edgware Road whiskey?
I don't know what you're talking about, sir. I say, Handley, I wish you'd stand still when you're talking to me.
But I am standing still.
That's what you think. Now, look. You've turned a somersault.
What?
And there's a lizard going into your breast pocket.
Colonel, you've certainly made a comeback. Look at that red wine stain on your shirt front. It looks like a map of Russia. Where did you come from?
Trafalgar Square, sir. I danced around all the Christmas trees.
All trees? I only saw one.
That's the worst of being sober, sir. You only see things by half. I say, what about a drink?
Listen, Colonel, with a head like yours, why don't you try a swim in the Serpentine?
Try a gin and turpentine. I don't mind if I do.
All right, well, now you've said that, perhaps you'll pipe down.
Certainly, sir. To heal Leo.
Leo? Who are you talking to?
One of the lions from Trafalgar Square. He follows me everywhere.
Are you sure it isn't Harvey the rabbit? Anyway, I don't see a lion.
You don't see a lion, sir?
No.
Well, all I can suggest is you should take an aspirin.
Good day, sir. Good day, Colonel.
Jack Train, and that, sadly, was Colonel Chinstrap's last dialogue with Tommy Handley in January 1949. In what proved his final show, Handley was still taking on new roles in the plot, as scriptwriter Ted Kavanagh strove to refresh the character.
I'm talking about a business proposition.
No.
I'm offering you a job that will bring a smile to the poor, tired faces in front of you.
I'm trying to do that now. And what a lot of tired faces, too.
No, I mean a job in charge of a tea and coffee stall.
What, a tea and coffee stall? Me surrounded by hot dogs and pickles?
You might at least have a go.
What, me in my state of wolf? No, Hutch, I won't do it. Not even if you went down on your mended knees.
Oh, I'm so disappointed.
Oh, now, don't give way, Hutch. Lummy, she's crying like a pantomime horse out of one eye. All right, Hutch, I'll do it. And I'll get Dr. Summerskill to open it and call it, let me see now, a good sneak in for Snook.
Snook, the tasteless austerity fish flesh, and almost the only abundant comestible in 1949. That was the 310th programme. In place of the next came an announcement.
Here is the Director General of the BBC, Sir William Haley.
Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot tonight present ITMA. Tommy Handley, that man, that humorous, ebullient, kindly man, around whose personality it was built and whose art held it together, is dead. For the men and women and children of this generation, to whom ITMA meant something that no other show will ever mean, and who tonight hold Tommy Handley in grateful and affectionate memory, there will never be anyone quite like that man again.
It's a rare public event that brings the DG to the microphone in that official capacity, and that in itself is a measure of Handley's importance to comedy and to the nation. And some measure of that kind is needed because, to tell the truth, not many champions of ITMA can be found within the BBC today. Only the other week, a senior BBC person described the show to me as a load of catchphrases and punchlines held together by froth, which in a way it was. ITMA overall is in the unlucky historical position of being thought of not as the show that inspired post-war comedy, but the one from which post-war comedy escaped. But however hard it is for a modern ear to tune into ITMA's wavelength, we all accept that it sets standards of audience loyalty and affection which probably can't be surpassed. And running for 10 years, it also gave future generations an idea of how long a successful show might be expected to sustain itself, given the willingness of writers and performers. So, the death of ITMA left the topical field open, in the first instance to individual opportunists.
They've finished the house now. They haven't taken the scaffolding away yet. They're going to wait till they get the wallpaper up just to make sure, see? I went down to see the house the other day, though. The man what I used to work for when I was a painter, he built it, see? He's standing outside the house there like Julius Caesar surveying the ruins of Pompeii. Well, I'm looking... I don't expect you to laugh at that, as long as I get the plug money. But I said, I'm going to laugh. It's all that matters, isn't it? The bands are still laughing. Shove the money up. We're doing all right. Don't bother. But the thing is, I said, I don't like. Look at the staircase. He said, well, that's what you wanted. That's a winding staircase. I said, I know, but it's too much bother. Wind it up in the morning, wind it down again at night.
Never at a loss, Arthur English, the leading spiv, black marketeer or wide boy of the age. Wide boy was a literal description if you saw Arthur's padded shoulders and kipper ties. Innocent by comparison was the backdrop of waterlogged Spa with Eric Barker in the lead. Here's a piece of Barker's topical spiel. See if anything about the reaction to it annoys you.
Oh, by the way, how about that viewer in South Africa who saw me quite plainly on his television set for a full minute? Wasn't that exciting? He was very excited too, apparently, and the BBC wrote back and explained that it wasn't natural and was really a freak reception, you know. And he wrote back and said he could see it wasn't natural, but could he have a photograph of the freak that appeared? But as if the BBC didn't have enough trouble. I mean, now the Ministry of Fuel wanted to read the 8 o'clock news at 7:45 to get people out of bed earlier. A few minutes ago, I just met Stuart Hibbert pouting. Yes, I thought he was pouting. Actually, he's busy taking bugle lessons in case they wanted to blow the reveille at 6:30. And now here is Herr Crow, not only in his Astrakhan coat, but also dressed up with a broken heart.
Well, maybe it didn't bother you at all, but there are listeners so sensitive to audience reaction that front row lady in the audience, who found everything funny, would have driven them up the wall. Persistent phantom laughers of that kind remain a problem to this day. It's said that one or two have even been bribed to stay away. Audience manipulation was itself a subject of comedy in the 40s. The American influence, by now, had produced more quiz format or question and answer shows, a trend deeply deplored by the How To team under Stephen Potter and Joyce Grenfell. Their satirical show How To Listen, which was, of course, a non-audience production, included the following.
And now, welcome once more to that quiz wizard, our jovial host, Max McCutcheon!
Hello there, folks. Hello. Thank you. This is Mac McCutcheon wishing you lots of fun. Now, who's first tonight, eh? A charming young lady in a most becoming hat, if I may say so. Oh, my. And what is your name, young lady?
Jean Gledding.
Jean Gledding. I dream of Jeannie with the nut brown hair. And where do you come from, Jean Gledding?
Bexley Heath.
Folks, this is my friend and your friend, Jean Gledding of Bexley Heath. And what did you do in the war, Jean?
I was in the ATS.
Well done, Jean Gledding. And what are you doing now?
Well, I'm still in the ATS.
The How To team, including Derek Geiler, Roy Plumley and Joyce Grenfell, really expressing, I think, their belief in the superiority of written material for silly old improvised speech. Shortly afterwards, the third programme was introduced, and there they found the intellectual home they'd been looking for. On the light programme, meanwhile...
Take it from here, don't go away when you can take it from here. Why don't you stay in there?
Few radio successes hit on their maturest style straight away, and young Frank Muir and Dennis Norden had some wobbly weeks early on with Take It From Here. What they did have from the start on TIFE, T-I-F-H, was a high standard of tailoring in the script, full marks for neatness.
Ladies and gentlemen, TIFE presents Focus on Leisure.
Millions of people spend their leisure greyhound racing. Let's listen to two enthusiasts discussing their favourite sport.
How'd you get on Saturday? Did me lot. Not a winner. Good meeting? Terrible. Many there? Couldn't move. Like ruddy sardines. What was the weather like? Pelting down. Soaked to the skin. Caught a shocking cold. Why don't you give up the dogs? Can't. It's the only enjoyment I got.
And though we're still several years before the advent of Ron and F, there were already set pieces well worthy of that later era.
However, when one is young, leisure time is time for romance. In this glorious summer, what more idyllic picture than a boy and girl in a punt beneath the shady willows of a slow-moving stream?
Nature boy, a strange enchanted nature boy. Oh, maybe this is just... Mavis, this is just like floating on a gondola through the streets of Vienna. I feel quite obliged in this straw hat. I got it from my uncle, you know. He's a wet fish merchant. Shall we have the sandwiches now? I brought along some cherries for afters. We can float a willow leaf down the stream and spit stones at it. Oh, Mavis, you look unbearably tantalizing in that Tyrolean dirndl and black woolen stockings. No wonder you provoked a comment from that man on the barge, though he might have phrased it better. Oh, Mavis, would that we could float on in this punt forever, but we'd better have it back by 4:20 or you lose your deposit.
If you heard Professor Edwin Karp, the fish mimic, in an earlier programme, you'll recognise Dick Bentley's voice there as a direct and linear descendant of Richard Haydn's Professor. Reliable, durable post-war series, to use the terms in which heads of BBC departments inevitably tend to see them, were now digging in. Ted Ray, for example, in Raise a Laugh. Some people don't like punning titles, but that one was really irresistible.
First lunch. Sausages again.
Sausages? Oh, good. Oh, I love sausages.
What a commotion. People rushing for sausages. Pardon me, sir. Why are all these people rushing for sausages?
Oh, they're all meat now. They can't afford to put bread in them.
Yes, if it wasn't the meat shortage, it was the bread dearth. About the only thing not in short supply was talent, dying to make its way in radio comedy. The early Raise a Laugh featured a young man who was just starting out doing voices.
Entrance forward, please. Come on, here we are. Now, the first one here, we have Miss Miriam Pound of Turnham Green. I take her measurements. Hips 36, waist 32, 38. And weight 112 pounds. No favoritism, please. Next contestant, would you step forward, please?
Oh, me?
Yes. Yes. What's your name?
Crystal Jollybottom, you soul snob. Oh, yeah. Take your microphone out of me suntan lotion.
All right, now. Hip 72. Waist 94. That's all.
Here, aren't you going to measure me?
No, I haven't got time. What's your weight?
19 stone in my bathing cap.
Have you made up your mind?
Yes, I've made up my mind.
41 million pound. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner is
Crystal Jollybottom.
What?
Yes.
You fool! Why did you get the price of Miss Pound? She won at Blackpool, Brighton, Margate, and Cleethorpes. Why did you give first prize to Jollybottom?
Because I followed Sir Stafford's example.
What's that?
I devalued the pound.
Peter Sellers as Crystal Jollybottom, a sort of quivering amalgam of all the traditional BBC Charlady characters, plus added gurgles from Sellers' beloved Finchley. Over and above the standard talents of a specific impressionist, Sellers had an unbeatable range of generic voices, vocal types, and it was mainly these that kept him in such constant employment, up to 9 shows a week at the height of the Sellers boom. It was an actor's rather than a comedian's range, and the standard for Sellers to match had been set quite recently in Much Binding in the Marsh, where whole sequences were set aside to display the versatility of Maurice Denham.
Oh, look, there's Mr. Blake. Morning, Mr. Blake. Have a good Christmas.
On the British funeral, we're gay, you go down the funeral, on the postman's knock.
I see Mr. Blake's got some of the villagers to help him on his farm over Christmas.
So he has. Morning, Picard.
Good morning, dear boys.
Have a good Christmas, Miss Klingbein.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Happy New Year, Percy.
Oh, yeah, it isn't it? What? Good morning, Mrs. Dimsdale. How's Irving?
Oh, getting on nicely, thanks, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Denham. Yes, good morning.
With Maurice Denham in residence, there wasn't much need for experiments in casting. He would do the lot. But a show where a slot in the cast sometimes fell vacant could do wonders in bringing on new talent. Such was the case with Educating Archie, of which a card in the BBC Archive Index remarks dryly, Archie Andrews, the star of the show, is a ventriloquist's dummy. Ventriloquism on radio, on the face of it, Well, that's the trouble. There is no face of it to see. But fortunately for the idea, the American vent, Edgar Bergen, had already proved it could work.
My Marilyn, this is the day that we will wed.
Oh, yes.
Hello, you poor losers, you.
Yes. Charlie?
Yeah?
So you're going to give up single bliss for a ball and chain?
Yeah. And being chained to Marilyn is really going to be a ball.
Charlie, do you think that you're ready for marriage?
Ready? Ready, man? I kicked a hole in the starting gate.
Oh, I say, Charles, old chap, I've heard about you and Marilyn Monroe, and may I tender my gratuitous felicitations upon the advent of your nuptials?
Well, I don't think it... what does that mean?
Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy, proving in 1942 that what the eye doesn't see, the lips don't move, or something of the kind. I don't think Peter Brough ever claimed to be the most immobile-lipped of ventriloquists, but his piercing, archy voice was perfect for radio, particularly in counterpoint with his loopy tutor, played by Robert Morton.
Hello, Andrew. Good morning, Sid. I'm looking forward to November the 5th, aren't you?
Oh, rather. If there's one thing I like to see, it's the boys enjoying themselves.
Oh, good.
I want you to have fun, Andrew.
Yes, but now...
And I'm personally going to see that you have a rip-snorting time. No, it's a wonderful thing.
Good. Well, can you spare a copper for the guy?
No. Now for the first... we'll take the first lesson.
Oh, now, come on, sir. You must be able to spare a copper.
Now, look, Andrews, I'm not made of money. I mean, since I received my salary, I've had to take Agatha out 5 times. Well, that's a shilling gone.
A shilling, eh? Just one long round of pleasure, that's it.
But in any case, Andrews, have you got a guy?
Oh, yes, I've got everything arranged. Now, this is the chair that we're going to put him in.
Splendid.
Good. Now, would you mind trying it for size?
Oh, no. Now, Andrews, I can see what's in your mind. You want to collect coppers for the guy while I sit in the chair with a funny mask on.
I hadn't thought of a funny mask.
As you can hear, Robert Morton contributed much to the persona that was later adopted by Derek Nimmo. Doing odd parts in the same series was an ex-RAF gang show hopeful called Tony Hancock. Here, as a cinema manager, there's just the odd flash of the Hancock to come.
I don't think you know anything about running a cinema at all.
Oh, don't I? I'll have you know, young man, I was practically born in the cinema.
Oh? What was showing?
Ben-Hur. It was during... Yes, it was during the chariot race.
Archie, stop annoying the man when he's trying to do his job. Leave him alone.
Oh, that's all right, but I know how excited these youngsters are when they come to my cinema. They just love to see my double features.
What have you got, 2 heads?
Yes, I use the other one for banging against the wall. Flippin' kid.
The obligatory catchphrase. Another young man waiting for stardom to happen was doing solo spots on the likes of Variety Bandbox and managing to earn himself an unusual introduction.
Time out now for lunacy. I noticed a considerable uproar among last week's Bandbox audience, which one inquiry I found was caused by a number of professional broadcasting goons who were taking a sort of busman's holiday at attending the program.
It may have been the first time the term goons was sneaked past the censor. They didn't like it upstairs, you know. Seacombe's Act was a prototype goon show in miniature.
So, pausing only to wipe some jelly deal off her chin and practically slipping a bottle of gin into the basket, Little Red Riding Hood sets out. Her shortest path is through the woods, but she's heard there's a wolf in the woods. So being no fool, she takes the path through the woods. Sure enough, hardly as she started on an expectant way, when out springs the wolf. Red covers her face and screams, "Ah!" Then she uncovers the face, and the wolf screams, "Ah!" Hearing the screams, a nearby woodcutter rushes to the spot, and after a short, sharp struggle, rescues the wolf. The wolf runs off, leaving Red to say sweetly to the woodcutter, "Oh, ask you to it to pay a big head."
We leave Seacombe as the lurgy begins to take hold. Full case history and prognosis next time.
But the woodcutter's a simple man, and asks, "Where are you going, Red?" And she says, "I'm not going Red anyway, stupid. I'm on my way to visit my granny in her woodland cottage. Have you seen anything of her lately? And he says,
No, she keeps her key in the keyhole.
And next time, the story of radio comedy explores a sitting room inhabited by the Glums, business premises guarded by Maury and Dudley Grosvenor, alias Peter Ustinov and Peter Jones, and of course the rest of the world as seen by the Goons. That's here on Radio 4.